Hi, it's Michael and David here, presenting Small Business Banter. A healthy micro and small business sector means a successful economy and a more vibrant society. Small Business Banter is about helping regional business owners better prepare for the current challenges and also for the next stage of business success. I'm Michael Kerr, founder of Kerr Capital, advisors to business owners. Each week with David Gregory, CEO of the Small Business Mentoring Service, we'll interview a different small business expert or a fellow business owner and operator. And they're going to share their best tips and insights for you, the listener. Small Business Banter is brought to you from the studios of 104.7 Gippsland FM and heard across Australia on the Community Radio Network. Thanks also to our supporters, Kerr Capital and the Small Business Mentoring Service. Intellectual property. It's the foundation stone for a lot of very successful new and innovative businesses, but there are areas for existing businesses to make better use of intellectual property. Lots of questions. What do I protect? How do I protect it? How much will it cost? On today's episode, we have Rob Pearce. He's CEO of one of Australia's largest intellectual property specialists, Wrays. We're going to have a chat to him about what really is intellectual property, how to protect it. And Rob's going to give us some practical insights and tips on dealing with your intellectual property in today's discussion.
So, welcome, Rob. Rob, could you give us a bit of an overview of who you are, what you do, and the organisation?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, David. So, my name's Rob Pearce. I'm the CEO of Wrays. Wrays are one of Australia's largest IP or intellectual property specialists, traditionally patent and trademark attorneys, but that now covers commercialization experts, IP lawyers, litigators. Personally, I'm an accountant initially, started at Wrays about 8 years ago as CFO. I have a background in small, medium and large business. And rather than being a professional like many of the people I lead, or certainly an IP professional, I think I bat more for the client side, which helps our people understand some of the trials and tribulations that are going on in small and medium business.
Well, that's very much what we're all about, isn't it? Batting for the smaller.
Yeah. Small Business Banter is exactly that, Rob. So we're talking the same language. Just to get on a bit of a roll and to put in everyday terms what intellectual property is or could be, so that I'm not sure if everybody has a clear understanding of what it is and what it could be. Could you just talk about what is typically intellectual property to get us started?
Before I took this role, IP to me was internet protocol. So IP is intellectual property, and look, at the highest level, there's probably two main forms. So there's registered, which is probably what firms such as mine are interested in. And then there's unregistered. So registered IP would take the form of a patent, of a trademark, of a design, or even plant breeders' rights. But unregistered, so copyright, confidential information, trade secrets, if you're fortunate enough to be able to keep a trade secret a secret, and know-how. Now, it's very, very, very important, and I'm not just saying that from an intellectual property background. It's if I could say to you, would you like a sustainable competitive advantage over your peers? I'm sure you'd say yes, please. And having registered or unregistered IP, providing it's protected and it's safe and it's yours, you could use it as a promotional tool. It gives you some bargaining rights. It's a risk mitigation tool. If you're out for investment, it would give investors confidence. It potentially gives you something to sell, to license, but most importantly, to exploit for your benefit.
So from an overarching perspective, how do I protect my IP? What can you protect and what can't you protect? Big question.
Okay. Well, yeah, thanks. So let me take that, distill that down a little, shall I? So can you protect it? Certainly. Of course you can. But there are tests. So is it in use already? So your brand or your idea that you would like to protect, is it in use already, registered or not? In the case of, say, a patent or an invention, is it novel? Is it actually inventive, what you have spent hours, years developing? Unfortunately, occasionally we see that people have invested blood, sweat, and tears in ideas that they believe to be novel and inventive, to find out when they come to the registration point that unfortunately somebody got there first and is already using that idea or a variation of. And that's called prior art, is what our professionals would look to. Now, you may have inadvertently shared that prior art by talking about your invention or giving a demonstration of it publicly, which would unfortunately mean that disclosed information would make your patent potentially unregisterable. But it's not just all about patents. There are trademarks, and certainly for smaller entities, trademarks is often the most accessible, can be inexpensive way of securing some IP rights for your business. Now, I think you said, should I protect IP? Well, look, you could register a trademark potentially in Australia for less than $1,000, subject to how many goods and services you want to attach to that. And I can delve into that a little bit more later if you wish. But, would you like competitive advantage? So do you want to sell a business? Do you want to license a product? It kind of depends on what your longer term strategy is. And all businesses of all sizes have a strategy, and they have an understanding of how and where they want to operate. So you should have an IP strategy, just as you have a strategy for your people or for your bricks and mortar.
Yep.
Exactly right. So one part of your IP strategy could be to do nothing. And that's absolutely fine if that is your decision based on the fact that you've identified some IP. Importantly, you've captured the IP. If at that point you believe that you can keep it a secret or you don't need to register it, then wonderful. There's the KFC, the Colonel's famous ingredient, or there's the Coca-Cola ingredient.
So it's in those cases, those secret recipes are written down somewhere and stored securely, and is that about the extent of it in terms of not registering?
Pretty much, it's a trade secret. That's right. So of course, those businesses have brands protected and trademarked, and they'll have packaging and such like will be officially registered, but apparently the secret recipe is just
locked away somewhere. Because with the average small business, if we go across the range, the average fish and chip shop that has a breadcrumb that he puts over it, that's not worth exploring a registration. Where if you create a better mousetrap and you're wanting to sell to the world, then it is. Now, when we look at across that range, is there a point where you look at the degree of sales or what potential saleability this product has to define whether it is worthy of registration?
Well, your point about the fish and chip shop is a good one. So, initially, I would be I would be ensuring that Mr. Fish and Chip Shop owner has at least got a registered trademark for his business name.
Yep.
Because if over the years his fish and chip shop has become the best chippy around and all the Poms like me go there on a Friday afternoon for their chippy dinner, if Rob's Fish and Chip Shop isn't trademarked, for example, and Bob's Fish and Chip Shop sets up round the corner, all of that hard work and blood, sweat and tears that I've put into building Rob's Fish and Chip Shop, I'm giving away some of that intellectual property. I'm giving away some of that competitive advantage.
Yeah.
When maybe it would be better for it to be David's Fish and Chip Shop, and they're nowhere near as good as Rob's.
Oh, there's no question of that.
So, yeah, we're talking to Rob Pearce, the CEO of Wrays. Rob, for small business owners who think they're onto something, I think you've made it clear that they really need to evaluate the business. Does this new thing or new way of doing things potentially create a creative, a sustainable advantage for the business? Could you talk about a couple of typical small businesses and what they've done, everyday businesses, to evaluate their IP and perhaps build a more sustainable business out of it? Is there something that the listeners could relate to in everyday terms?
Yeah, I can give you some potentially a couple of generic ideas. Obviously, I need to be fairly cognizant of the market we operate in.
Oh, no, we want to pinch all those ideas, Rob.
Look, my IP management guru would say that there's 4 key areas that we need to be concerned with. So the first is identifying the IP, which I think I touched on a little while ago. If you don't identify that IP, it's lost knowledge. But if you have identified it, you need to find some way of capturing it. So, for an invention, that could be a diagram and some instructions as to how it works and the pertinent elements of it. For a logo, similar sort of thing. Once you've captured it, you then need to make the decision to protect it or not. Now, the importance to your business will dictate whether you decide to invest money in protecting that or not. But if you own a shop or a small tool shed or something, you're going to insure that property, and you're going to insure the contents of that property. So it's likely that you should be looking to spend or invest a similar amount of money in mitigating the risk associated with your intellectual property. And then beyond the protection, there's also the management as well. So often you'll need to renew your rights periodically. Your property may even pivot into something different. David's comment before about the chippy owner possibly inventing a mousetrap. We see that all the time, where a completely separate idea to the core business comes up from some external source, and that then becomes the pivot that the firm goes off to. When we're talking about real life examples, here in WA, where I'm based at the moment, the Margaret River region, there's many small distillers, brewers, wineries who can either and have looked to patent some distribution or creation methods that other firms haven't got. But probably most importantly for the smaller entities is the branding. So it's the trademarks, it's the logos, it's the packaging that really distinguishes their business from their nearest competitor. We referred to the T-shirt you've got on that's from a very well-known local Perth-based brewer that started off in a seaside town in Australia, in Perth, Australia, ended up being acquired by one of the world's largest brewers.
Yeah, that brand is, it lives on today, and I'm not sure how long ago it started, but it's I think you recognised it pretty much straight away. So the value of something that is visual and experientially, lots of people visit that place and have had fun times there.
So IP,
can I just go on, Rob?
I was just going to say, IP isn't just for large, established businesses with huge pockets to be able to go and bash the head of its nearest small competitor. It's quite the opposite, actually, and it gives smaller businesses an established way to deal with larger entities, to license that IP into those larger entities, to give the larger entities some comfort that it is an established and secure business.
Rob, can I just address a couple of, or quash a couple of potential ideas in the minds of small business? Can a business change an idea that's run by that has been developed by somebody else, and say change it by 10%, and therefore be able to register that as something new? How much of a difference do they have to make before it becomes a registrable different item?
So the quotation is, it has to be novel and inventive. Now, one patent attorney will be able to capture the terms of how novel and inventive something is from a starting point, very differently to how another patent attorney might be able to capture how novel and inventive something is. However, that will go to the governing body, so in our case, IP Australia, and a patent examiner will examine the merits of how inventive or otherwise they believe that to be. And sometimes you'd be surprised at how incremental that innovation might be. On other times, it may need a larger one. I'm sorry that's a vague answer, but we're not always dealing with specifics.
No, that's understandable, Rob. I was just thinking about small business owners out there, some of the resources that you could kind of hint at or suggest that they go and access to help them evaluate the various stages. Have I got some IP? Is it worth protecting? Are there some websites, some tools, some tips that you could give to the listeners? We're going to share them on our smallbusinessbanter.com site afterwards, but it'd be worth talking through them now.
We have partnerships with Small Business Mentoring Service, with Melbourne Business Network. We're partners with Australian Made Campaign, so you can access relevant information there. Often you'll be able to speak with a professional if you're aligned to one of those bodies for free of charge to help you in that initial assessment. But IP Australia, our governing body, their website is actually pretty good in explaining what is a patent, what is a trademark, what is a design, and help you understand the merits of each of those. Go on to Wrays' website. We've got weekly and fortnightly and quarterly publications there, or even link in with me and I'd be happy to point you in the right direction, be it Wrays or otherwise.
No, that's great. One of the things I do a lot of in my day-to-day business is deal with, and you talked about this a little earlier, coming up to selling a business. The biggest question I get from buyers of businesses is what's different, unique, competitive? Why am I going to be able to continue to take out of that business the returns they're getting, for a long period of time to make the investment worthwhile? Is that in and of itself, a pretty compelling reason to thoroughly evaluate your intellectual property, whether it be a process or a brand, a whatever form of IP?
Well, a registered and secured brand is a demonstrable competitive advantage to your peer. You can fairly clearly show that. But I think more exciting would be if you can demonstrate that you're licensing registered IP over a period of time to a client, or even a competitor, as the case may be, then that's quantifiable. That's dollars that you can value at whichever multiple you choose.
Yeah, but the point is that you've got something to show. In the case of a buyer thinking about selling, you've got something demonstrable to show and to prove that the business is going to be around for a while.
Exactly. Look, we as business owners, as leaders, our people are often our biggest asset. We've got cash and investments, we've got premises, we've got equipment and machinery. Now, we'd have asset registers for our equipment and machinery. For our people, we'd have employment contracts in place, and we'd have potentially their quarterly reviews, etc., etc. Surely we should do the same for our IP. So, please identify and capture it. And you don't necessarily need a professional in place for that. You could go to some of those resources we talked about previously, but at least identify and capture so that you've got something to take to somebody.
Yeah, it's really interesting. That requires a perspective on your own business that I think, occasionally or often owners, it's hard for them to see what's so different or unique because they're in it every day. And so, having a conversation with somebody else, just to help them point out that this is interesting or different on you. And but it does take when you're working in your business 14 hours a day and you just do what you do, sometimes it's hard to see it as anything special because you're there at it all the time.
Absolutely right. My wife, until recently, had her own small business, and when I would poke my nose in and about her cake making and see, where's the IP in this, it would be, I'm too busy. I need to get this cake finished now.
Yeah, this brilliant cake.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's great, Rob. Look, we unfortunately we need to draw this to a close. Fantastic conversation and some great insights on some of the what IP is and how it can help business owners. So we encourage business owners to check out smallbusinessbanter.com, and we'll have those resources listed. Really appreciate your time, and thanks very much. Good luck with Wrays.
Thanks, guys. Thanks a lot. Take care.
That was a great chat with Rob Pearce from Wrays IP Lawyers, David, wasn't it? I thought, as we do, let's recap on a couple of things to really bring it home for small business owners. And I thought one for me was that intellectual property can be quite confusing. He broke it down pretty well to what some of the practical things IP could be, but really evaluating it and understanding it is really important for any business to be sustainable and competitive. And
yeah, absolutely. I think it's also one of the things that I took out of that was that it is part of your business strategy, that you shouldn't just be looking at protecting your bricks and mortar or your equipment. You should also be looking at one of your most important assets is your brand or your IP, your products that you've created. And also reflecting back on the fact that it is a confusing area. Wrays has, through Rob, have offered to Small Business Banter listeners half hour free. So if anybody wanted to ask a few questions about their IP, they can give Wrays a call, and we'll have the phone numbers and web address on the smallbusinessbanter.com website. We will indeed. I think the point. One of the points he was making there was it's not just for big businesses, it's very definitely for small businesses, and we want all of our small business owner listeners to be successful. So it's not just for the big guys. Yeah, and also it makes your business more valuable. It gives you something to sell. That when you're working very specifically in the sale of business space, to be able to sell something that's got an established brand would add significantly to the saleability of a business. Yeah, it's as we were chatting with Rob, it's singularly the most important question a potential buyer is going to ask of a business owner who's selling. Is it going to fall away when you're not there, or why am I going to be able to enjoy the financial rewards going forward? So, yeah, certainly for owners coming up to that
a planning stage for selling. Any IP that you can document is going to help you do that. But even up until that stage, you very much get the sense that it's it's going to help make your business more profitable anyway along the way, or more sustainable, because you've taken the time to look at how your business work and what makes it different and unique, and that's good for business now.
Yeah, I think that's also this is a bit of a business 101 mentoring moment, that if you're going to establish a brand for your business, don't call it Michael's Fish and Chip Shop, because when you go to sell it, you've got to sell it to somebody called Michael. If you establish a brand, try to establish a brand that is universal, that you can then tie a logo around, tie an image around, tie a story around, that is eminently saleable, and whoever comes into it can take over that business.
Yeah, absolutely, and and beyond that to things like just your processes for getting your business right. They're all things that distinguish your business and make it more viable. It was a great chat with Rob. As Dave has just said, the resources we've referred to in this recap and in the discussion with Rob will be on smallbusinessbanter.com. So look forward to your ears in future episodes. Just after this interview, I did check out those couple of resources that Rob Pearce from Wrays mentioned. Their company website is wrays.com.au, an excellent resource for small business owners. And then I went on to check ipaustralia.gov.au. Again, some excellent resources. So if you can't wait while you're listening in, check out both those websites. They're really helpful. So that's all for today's episode of Small Business Banter. David and I continue to be inspired by bringing you small business experts and hearing your stories. For any of the links, resources or information we've talked about on the show today, or to contact David or I, please head over to smallbusinessbanter.com. And David and I would love you to tune in at the same time next week for another episode of Small Business Banter.